Hello everybody, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Callie. If you are new here, and if you are not new here, welcome back. Thank you so much for supporting me, but today is going to be more of a sit-down video, kind of just explaining my personal health and wellness journey, how I started, my tips to get there, how I overcame binge eating and my restrictive diet habits, and also just kind of explaining how I got into the bodybuilding world and what my kind of goals and plans are from there. So I'm not gonna make this intro too long, so we're just gonna jump right into the video. I also am just gonna be positioning myself on this side of the screen because I do plan on flashing some old images of myself and everything on this side. I also have my phone with me, and if I'm ever looking down, it's because I literally have such an expansive list of my story, just because I didn't want to forget anything and kind of just make sure that I was hitting on key points. So before we really jump into anything, I kind of want to give you guys my background. So I was a high-level competitive gymnast for 8.5 years of my life, and I truly loved it. I wanted to go to college for it and everything, and I seriously worked my freaking tail off for that sport. I dedicated a lot of time and a lot of hours to it, and ultimately, it came down to an injury that took me out of the sport. I ended up spraining my elbow on vault, and vault was my favorite event, and that ended up revealing that my elbow was actually dislocated ever since I was young, roughly 4 to 6 years old. There's a whole little story and background of what might have happened or anything, but we're not exactly positive. So my elbow is still dislocated, malformed. I still cannot straighten it fully to this day, and we didn't really recognize it until this injury happened. So it happened in March of 2019, and I went to physical therapy for this injury, and it did help, obviously, but it didn't help enough to the point where I could get back into the sport fully, and it was really difficult for me. I ended up having to take out bars and vault. And that was really hard for me because vault was my favorite. Vault was the best event that I did, and because I was just very powerful and I was very confident with it. And not to brag, but I did get it. I got a 9.9 one time because I took one tiny step at the end. But anyways, and that ended up taking my training hours from 20 hours during the school year down to 10. So when I ended up figuring out that I had this injury, I was really curious about lifting. There was one girl who was at the gym before I ended up switching to this gym. She was there, but all of the girls would talk about her and stuff and say, oh my gosh, she's lifting, she looks so good, this, that, and the other thing. So I kind of did my research on her, and I was like, dang, yeah, she does look really good, and she looks amazing, and I see why these girls are looking up to her, right? So I was curious about lifting. I've always heard of it and stuff, but I was just I don't know how to get started. And also I did have a lot of more male friends, and just lifting some heavy weight kind of seemed really fun to me. So I got curious. I ended up looking up videos, and I stumbled upon Chrissy Celia, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, and Whitney Simmons, and I was obsessed with their videos, guys. When I tell you, I was truly obsessed. At the time, I did try lifting. I remember briefly at Planet Fitness, because they were doing oh, teenagers lift for free back in the summer of 2019, and my boyfriend and I at the time would try to go together, and I had no clue what I was doing. He knew what he was doing because of football and stuff, so he would kind of help me out, but we would go there and I would do my own thing and he would do his own thing. And with that, I would get extremely anxious. I was so nervous the entire time. I had a lot of anxiety going to it, or going to the gym, and ultimately I just didn't stick with it. Things in that relationship ended up worsening a lot, and my mental health really declined. I was a junior in high school now at this point, and I want to say it was November-ish where I really was just curious, and I was begging my mom. I was like, Mom, please, can I please get a membership? Can I please get a gym membership? And she worked at this place. They had a wellness center, and she's like, you know what, since you're my kid, you're allowed to go work out there for free, so we'll go get you signed up. Well, the day after Christmas, finally, she ended up getting me signed up. I started going over there Christmas break, and I loved it. I did a lot of my research, and I kept watching all these YouTube videos and finding workouts from all these YouTube videos, right? And I somehow I went in there and I had a plan, and I knew I would be a lot more successful going in there with a plan. So I still have the note to this day of every single workout that I did, and me not knowing anything about proper phasing and stuff, they changed every single day. Basically, after Christmas break, my routine looked like getting up at 4 to 4:30 in the morning because I lived super far around the country. I would drive my little behind to that gym, which was about 20 minutes away. I would get my workout done, then I would finish up, get ready in the locker room, head over to school, go to school all day. Then after school, I would coach gymnastics for 2 hours until 6:30, and then I would finish my gymnastics practice for my last 2 events, which was floor and beam, and I would practice until 8:30, and I kind of did it independently since I, you know, was injured. I did that until 8:15, and then I would drive the extra, you know, 20 minutes home and repeat every single day. And that's what I did. I ended up stopping completely because of COVID. My mom has this really nice built out gym. Like, she's an ultra marathon runner, so she has 3 treadmills down there, bike, rower, like a lot of adjustable dumbbells, and now she has a squat rack and like all these really cool things, but I just was not motivated to do it by myself. So I just didn't do anything. And then Chloe Ting popped up, so I was curious, and I started doing some of those a little bit here and there, and I hated it, but I still did it because I wanted to be skinny, I wanted to be lean. I was not happy with how my body looked. I want to say like I was the skinny fat. I by no means was overweight, but I wasn't happy with the way that I looked, and I wanted to have more muscle tone to me. And at the time I was like, absolutely not bodybuilding, but like enough to like just tone me up, and I wanted to be little, I wanted to be small, and I wanted to have abs, right? So I finally, yet again, was begging my parents to get a membership at Planet at this point. They finally said, yes, like you can get it, but you're paying for it. So I just did the $10 a month. And this was in September of 2020 at this point. I think I was there from like October of 2020 until February of 2021, but I was going there pretty inconsistently, if I'm being honest. Like, I wasn't like, if I didn't feel like going, I wouldn't go. And then as for nutrition with all of that, during my time, I ate healthy or tried to eat healthy. I had no idea what protein was, what gut health was, or anything like that. I quite honestly was completely clueless. So in February of 2021, I actually had an experience at Planet that completely drove me away. I did not like it there. I didn't like how they didn't have free weights. I wanted to lift heavy, like heavy weights. I wanted to do the cool deadlifts that I saw people doing. I wanted to do, you know, squats with free weights and stuff. And I just didn't like the atmosphere at that gym. So I ended up switching to my current gym that I'm at still to this day, and I love it there. I've been there for almost 2.5 years now, and I've created my bestest friends at that gym, and I've literally created a family. I am there, and now I'm training clients out of there. Like, it truly was just one of the best things I could have ever done for myself. So with that, I ended up switching over to Habit, and I ended up meeting a friend, and we started getting close, and I was curious about tracking calories, and she ended up helping me out. And I asked her, I was like, oh, like what are your calories looking like? Like, what's your protein looking like? And she told me, and I remember it was around like 1,700, but she's told me to start a little higher and then slowly cut down. Well, I didn't do that. And I was super anal about tracking and super anal about hitting all of my macros, like, because if you know me personally, you know I have an all or nothing mentality, which is not something that's great. Obviously, you can look at my mom. She's the same way. Thanks, Mom. But I made sure to hit all of my macros regardless. Whatever it was, I made sure to do it. I figured out the coffee swaps. I figured out my lunch every single day. And I'm a creature of habit, so I ate the same thing every single day. I was meal prepping, making all this time. Like, I did it. I gun-hoed it so heavy. Like, so heavy. I was all in, right? So then I found out about 75 Hard, and I have been listening to the Real AF podcast for quite some time. And then once I graduated from high school, the day after graduation, I picked up 75 Hard right away. And I was already relatively lean. And I remember my last meal, it was this really good pasta from my favorite restaurant as like my little graduation meal. It was my, like, the last dinner. And then I went and I hit a lift after that dinner. And then the next day was, boom, 75 Hard. So here's the starting progress photo of 75 Hard. And I stuck with it for a long time. But with that, I became very restrictive because you can't have any cheat meals, right? All of my friends were getting ice cream and doing all of this stuff. And I couldn't do that. I cut myself away from all of these like social gatherings and stuff, and honestly, like, I'm not ripping on 75 hard because I've done it twice now, and I would love to do it again when I'm not in prep right now, because I've been on prep for almost, you know, God, like 4 months now. Once I stopped 75 hard, I went off the deep end really, really bad. Like, oh, I'm not doing 75 hard anymore. I can eat whatever I want. And I remember this so specifically. I was at one of my friend's cabins and we went boating, and the entire day I was just thinking about food the entire time because I couldn't eat anything that she was having, or these are really good cookies that were freshly baked. Like I remember like making the decision to just quit, and then finally giving in and eating a cookie. And then later that night I had another cookie, and then later that night I had a bowl of protein cereal, and then another bowl, and then half of another bowl, and then another cookie, all in one night after quitting 75 hard. And that was the catalyst of starting my binge and restrict cycle. And it was rough. I never was diagnosed or anything like that, but I ultimately ended up putting on 20 to 25 pounds in less than 2 months, and it took a toll on me. I also was starting college, and I truly was at one of the lowest points, adjusting to college, all of my really close friends leaving, but me staying in my hometown, because my hometown is a college town, and I didn't stay on campus. I ended up commuting to campus, so the only way to like make friends really was like through classes and, you know, maybe going to the college campus gym, but I didn't really like that gym because it was just jam-packed, and I just liked my gym more. I ended up getting sucked into the college culture for a little bit. I'm not like a big drinker or partier or anything, but like I did have a little time span where I was really going through a rough time towards like mid to the end of summer, and I would seek out a lot of vices for myself. A lot of bad things happened, and it kept piling on and on and on, and I would seek for food for comfort. You know, I would get ice cream all the time. I would make myself like excuses all the time, or I would eat nothing throughout the day and then just completely go overboard at night. And I remember so vividly, I restricted myself to 1,500 calories a day. I would be starving, and I would be eating all this processed, high protein, low calorie junk, and I just would do that the entire day, and then I would come home and just binge at night and go overboard. When I moved into this current house, my like host mom, I'll call her, she knew that I loved Oreos. She knew that I loved peanut butter and dark chocolate, right? Those are all my guilty pleasures. And so she found these peanut butter Oreos and gave them to me as a little gift. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And if you know me, like Oreos were always my comfort food. Like I remember when I was 16, super depressed, going through this really bad relationship, which I can also dive into that time of my life later in a different video, but I literally ate an entire package almost of mint Oreos with milk, and because I was so sad and I seeked comfort through the food. Sorry, my camera cut me off at like 15 minutes, but she ended up giving me this like pack of Oreos, and I would have like 4 at a time, which isn't too bad. But then I remember like being so fed up with myself, and a constant thought that would go through my head is like, okay, I'm gonna start this, like I'm gonna start tomorrow and like track and be on track and everything, but I don't want like these Oreos around. I can't have them around, like out of sight, out of mind, but I'm not gonna throw them away and waste them, so I'm gonna eat them all and I'm gonna start tomorrow. I remember I had like a row and a half left of those Oreos. I ate them all in one sitting, and that is just one minor example. And another one is like my friends, they didn't know I was struggling with this, so there's absolutely no hate to my friends for saying this or doing these things, but they would call me the garbage disposal, right? Because I loved food, and they knew if they didn't finish their food that I would eat it. So they would give me the rest of their food and say like, yo, here's the you're the garbage disposal, like go ahead and finish the rest of our stuff. Or I would go to Qdoba all the time for lunch during college, and I would go like literally 3 to 5 times a week. I'm not even kidding. It was a lot. And I would get a bowl, like a big bowl, and I forced myself to finish it. Yeah, because when I was little, I was like, you get what's on your plate and you're finishing it. Like you're staying at the table until you finish it. So I had that mentality, and like even if it was in front of me, it's like I had to eat it. I had literally no control, and it was truly like one of the worst things in my life. So anyways, I ended up going through my first semester of college, and then I ended up dropping out and pursuing other things, which is now my CPT, and I actually have an online business now, so haha, all worked out. But it was also a really rough time in my life. So I dropped out of college. I remember like kind of struggling to make, not exactly struggling, but like I was working a lot on top of being a 4.0 student, like full-time, taking 18 credits. And at the time I was just like, I just want, like, I've always had the journey of like starting my own online personal training business. So I invested in my NASM course and I ended up finishing that. Fast forward to 4 months, and keep in mind throughout all these 4 months I'm still struggling heavily with my finances, with my food. It was terrible. It was not a good time. I remember being at the gym and I was like, I just want to start bodybuilding. Like, I want to fully go through with it. I wanted to compete in a show back in 2022, but that didn't end up happening. So I was like, no, I'm making it happen in 2023. Like, we're gonna compete, because now, like, I was like, we're gonna compete. I don't have the finances for it right now, but I'll figure it out as I go. So I remember reaching out to one of the people that actually got me into the current gym that I'm at. She was a bodybuilder, and I asked for her recommendations for a coach. She recommended me to a different girl who was my current coach, and I reached out to her, told her my situation. She's like, look, I'll give you a 10% discount since you're a student. And we ended up working together, and I took the whole form and everything. She's a registered dietitian. I have BB Pro, and she knew about all my binge and restrictive eating habits and stuff, and we decided that I wanted to go with a meal plan. And so that kind of really helped me out, and she helped me out with meal timing and all of that stuff. At the time, like I said, I had no idea how I was going to pay for it, because it's expensive. Like, it is expensive to have a good quality coach, and this is also coming from another coach. Like, it's expensive to have a good coach. And at the time I wasn't an online coach, and I wasn't training in person yet either. I was still working through my certification. But I was like, screw it, I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I'm gonna make this work. Thank God we made it work. She helped me get my calories back up, got me to like a healthy point in time. So, which is gonna lead me to my little tips for all of you guys on how I overcame that and what I did. Binge eating, a lot of people, I feel like, try to hide, and I don't want to hide my struggles. I want to be open about them and share, you know, I obviously shared my experience and how I felt during it, and I don't want other people to feel like they're alone, because you're absolutely not alone, and there's more people out there who are in the same or similar situation as you. I want to hopefully shed some light on this subject, because I feel like a lot of people feel shameful, feel guilty because of it. This is not, like, I am no medical professional by any means, or a registered dietitian. You know, I'm a CPT and CNC. Like, I'm not, you know, this is just my advice on what I did. So the first tip that I have is hire a freaking coach. I will tell anybody this, hire a coach. I have a coach for bodybuilding. I have a coach for my business and my mentor. Like, it is so good to have an outsider's perspective on things, right? I don't know where I would be without my coach, because why would I invest so much money just to not stick to her protocols and let that money go down the drain? Me personally, I'm always going to be working and getting my money's worth if I invested into something. So it's like, why would I not follow my coach's protocol? And especially if you have a coach that you know and trust and that you agree with and like that is huge. And I think it's okay to look around and shop for coaches, because you're not gonna vibe or click with the very first one you meet. And thankfully for me, I took my friend's word, because I trusted her with my entire heart, and my coach is amazing and I love her so much. The second thing that I allowed for myself is to have no budget on food and just stop pinching pennies, because the second that I did that, I allowed myself to have whole foods. I allowed myself to pick foods that were gonna feel good, rather than this processed junk that I was consistently putting into my body over and over again. That was the low calorie but high protein stuff that left me feeling bloated, it left me feeling stressed, and it left me feeling crappy. And once I switched over to eating whole foods, I found that it was actually almost harder to eat whole foods, because at the time, they're voluminous. Like, whole foods have a lot of volume to them. Lots of times, I feel like this processed stuff is always just like condensed into a bar or something, and I was just fed up with it. And I also started learning about gut health too, which is why I was like, oh, okay, whole foods, like, that's the way to go. Which leads me into my next point, gut health. Like, learn, educate yourself on gut health, and once you have that knowledge, I feel like you're gonna thrive more with knowing about that, because there are a lot of things that like once you present that information to yourself, you're just like, wow, like you can't ignore that. Next is meal timing. So eating at roughly the same times every single day. So for example, right now I eat roughly around 7 a.m. and then noon to 1 and then 3 to 4 and then 5 to 6ish and then 7, usually around 7 to 7:30. It's like my meal timing every single day, and I make sure to make it happen, and it just helps a lot with my hunger cues and like truly knowing like when I'm hungry versus when I'm not. And then also I focused a lot on portion sizes. I took a break from tracking, and it helped having a meal plan at the time too, because like I just knew what I was eating right away, and I didn't exactly like have to go into my macro calculator and track it all out and stuff. But I focused on portion sizes. So for example, let's go back to Qdoba. Qdoba had these big bowls, and I knew if I was like, okay, I'm only gonna eat half of this, I knew I wasn't just gonna eat half, I was gonna eat all of it. So they ended up coming out with mini bowls. So now when I go to Qdoba, I just get a mini bowl instead, because then I can finish it and be okay with it. Now with that, when I'm at my house or something, I will be in the kitchen, I give myself a portion, and I walk out of the kitchen. I do not stay in there. I don't want food in sight. I finish eating it, and then if I'm like, okay, I want more, I don't act on the cue immediately. I'm mindful of it. It's like, okay, I had the signal, I wanted more. I make myself wait at least 10 to 15 minutes until I go back to grab a second portion if I'm still hungry. And most of the time, I never went back because I quite literally forgot about it, and I kept myself busy during the fact. And then lastly, mindful eating. So this means eating slower, and also doing it with no distractions. So you're not watching a YouTube video, you're not scrolling on your phone. It is literally just you focusing on eating your food and taking it slow. Okay, sorry guys, my camera battery was dying. This is also slightly crooked. Moving forward past that, now we're gonna continue on with my story. So I ended up finishing my NASM certification in, I think, May of 2022. And I ended up going to my gym owner, and I was like, hey, like, I just finished my certification. Like, is it fine if I start training clients? He's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. Like, here's just, like, what you need to know. So he told me everything, and I started training clients. And thankfully for me, I had the job of being a gymnastics coach. So a lot of the moms actually knew. And I also knew a lot of people through, like, Facebook and stuff. And I made the announcement, and it was not hard for me to onboard my first couple of clients, which was amazing. And I'm so blessed for that. And that ended up quickly turning into coaching online. So then I ended up getting into that industry and whatnot, and now that's mainly what I do. I have my online coaching business, which is Achieve It Athletics LLC. I am still taking on some clients now for the summer and whatnot, so if you would like to apply, the link is in the description. I would absolutely love to connect with you guys, or you can also DM me on Instagram. But anyways, I got into that, and then in, I think, September of 2022, I ended up applying at another job, which is to be a boot camp fitness instructor, and I applied there. I got the job, and I absolutely loved it. So at one point in time, I was doing in-person, one-on-one personal training. Then I was also doing online personal training. Then I was doing my boot camp fitness instruction over at this new job, and then I was also a gymnastics coach. So I had 4 jobs at once, and let me tell you, it was a lot, and oh my goodness, it's wow. I ended up leaving the gymnastics coaching job a couple months ago now, and as hard as it was, I needed to do it to focus on my online coaching business, and it truly was the best decision for myself. Yeah, that gets me to where I am today. I'm now currently almost 7 weeks out from my first ever bodybuilding show. I've been in prep since January, essentially, slightly into December, but I like had 2 off days in December, or on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then we like really gun-hoed it on prep. Yeah, so my workout split, since a lot of people are curious, I started off doing 6 times a week. So I'm gonna talk as if I was like when I first started a habit, because that's when I got really consistent. So that was back in February of 2021. I started off doing 6 days a week of doing PPL, which stands for push-pull legs, which translates to push being chest, shoulders, triceps, pull being back and biceps, legs being overall legs. So I did PPL, PPL. And then I ended up doing PPL/Arnold. So the Arnold split is chest and back, shoulders and arms, and legs. So I still was doing it 6 days a week. now what I do is PPL / full upper / full lower. So I have 2 rest days in there, and then also for my cardio varies for myself. But after I started allowing myself those 2 rest days, I noticed a lot more progress because my body was actually able to recover properly. And even on my rest days, I'm still doing active recovery. I'm still going for walks, or I go, like, I used to run a little bit back before I cut it out for prep. I do mobility and stretching or yoga or anything like that. Like, I was still staying active. It's just I wasn't lifting. And I noticed a lot of progress with that. And then I also always implement cardio just to keep my heart healthy. Not just for the losing weight factor, like literally just because I want to keep my cardiovascular health in check. And it's also subject to change after prep. And this split is going to be completely different, most likely after prep, because I got involved with BPN supplements. Yet again, I'm an ambassador for them. I love them so much. And that community is based, like, mainly endurance athletes. Like, there's not many bodybuilders in that community, but I've ultimately, like, my goals, I want to be a well-rounded athlete. I want to be able to run fast. I want to be strong. I want to look good, but that comes with being able to be a jack of all trades, essentially. So aesthetics aren't exactly my goal anymore. Right now, of course, I want to look good, and that makes me feel good, but my main goal is performance-based activity. So yeah, and if you're ever ordering something from BPN Supplements, my support link is in the description of this video, or it's also linked in my Instagram bio. And then lastly, just some quick tips for you all. Tip number 1 that I have, like, as a main tip, yet again, hire a coach for guidance. If you don't know what you're doing in the gym, hire a coach, a good coach that has a good program that can be customized to you and one that you vibe with. It seriously makes your life so much easier, and you don't have to give a second thought of what to do, how to do it, and you can always ask your coach. Like, ask them questions. It is a good thing to ask your coach questions. I ask my coach questions. It's like, hey, like, I trust your judgment, I trust what you're doing, but I'm just curious, like, why are we doing this? And it's amazing. Then tip number 2, when you're first getting into your fitness health journey, a lot of people struggle with nutrition because they cut out entire foods and entire, like, food groups and, like, the things that they enjoy doing. But I think it's better to make swaps. So for example, one swap could be taking Reese's peanut butter cups and swapping them out for Quest cups, or taking Halo Top ice cream instead of regular ice cream, or making your own protein ice cream instead of getting regular ice cream, or just finding things that work for you instead of cutting out whole groups. And I'm sure a lot of you may have heard of the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule essentially is you're on track 80% of the time, like, you're hitting the nail on the head, like, you're doing great, and then the 20% is you get to have a little bit of fun, you get to have a little lenience and stuff, but make sure it's actually 80-20 and not 60-40 or 40-60, you know what I mean? Like, you be honest with yourself. Also, one thing that my coach and I did when I was first working with her and on a meal plan, she said that I was allowed to have one full-on cheat meal a week if I stayed on every other meal. So for example, this meal included a drink, an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert if I stayed on with everything, and I would just replace one of my meals with that meal, and that really helped me out a lot. And then also a big tip that a lot of people struggle with, I feel like too, is starting off slow. You don't need, or you shouldn't be jumping into 6 days a week. If you went completely from 0, you should not feel obligated to be going there 6 days a week. I would recommend starting 3 days a week, or 4 might even be pushing it. 2 to 3 days a week would be amazing. And some example splits, if you do 2, you can do an upper lower, and for a 3-day split you can do push pull legs. That's already 2 days of what you could be doing. Or if you want to do 3 days, you could do full upper, full lower, and then you can do like a HIIT cardio day or something to do, like, enhance your athleticism, you know, focusing on speed and performance rather. And then also one big thing that I also work with my clients on is the power list, which is talked about in episode 16 of the Real AF podcast. Essentially, making a very long explanation short is you make a daily list for yourself, consisting of 3 to 5 tasks that you absolutely have to accomplish that day. So for example, a list could be drinking a gallon of water, reading 10 pages, and doing your workout. And those are all things that you're currently inconsistent with. So every single day you check those off, and if you check it off, boom, you get a W. Once it becomes autopilot, you take one of those habits and you put a new one in. So say, for example, you have been consistent with reading and doing your workout, but you have been inconsistent with drinking your water. You're going to taking out the lift, and you're going to be taking out the reading and replacing it with 2 new things, but keeping the water on there. So for example, you know, you did the first list for a month, and now your next list could be drinking a gallon of water, doing 20 minutes of cardio, and hitting your protein goal every day. And you keep checking that list off every single day. And I recommend doing this in a notebook, and literally being able to see the days that you have the W and the days that you have the L, so you can look back and reflect on it and see where you need to adjust and see if you're taking on too much. Alrighty guys, so I know that was such a long video. I really hope that it was helpful though. I know that there was a lot of topics being discussed throughout it, but I do have the chapters kind of like divided into its little segments, so you can quickly go back and watch wherever you would like to watch and see where I discuss certain topics. So hopefully that was helpful for you guys. If you guys made it to this point in the video, comment Mostly Sunny down below. If you have not already, make sure to follow me on TikTok, Instagram, Lemonade, all of the things, because I am very consistent on all other social media platforms. Thank you guys so much for supporting me on this journey and just honestly believing in me. It has been one heck of a ride so far, and we're about 7.5 weeks out now at the point of filming this video. I'll be less than 7 weeks out when this video is uploaded. So thank you guys again. I love you all so much, and I will see you guys in my next video.